There we go. And Rob, if you will lead us in the third step prayer, please, sir.
I certainly will. Kristen, did you have a question? It looked like you were trying to say something.
Sorry, no, I'm just trying to figure this out. It just said recording in progress, and I was wondering if I hit something. Am I recording?
No,
okay, we're good.
We do that.
I'm just hitting all the buttons, trying to figure it out. Sorry.
Well, it's great to have you here, Kristen.
Thank you.
Is it Kirsten or Kristen? Kirsten.
Kirsten. Yeah.
Kirsten, I apologize. Great to have you here.
Thank you.
The third step prayer, which is on page 63 of your big book, everybody, if you want to follow along. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help, of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always.
Excellent, Rob. All right. We actually stopped on page 33 the other day. We were talking about the big lie and this unfortunate story here, but it's got a powerful lesson in it. So we are going to start at near the top of page 33, where it's this case contains a powerful lesson.
Page 33, everybody, right at the top. This case contains a powerful lesson. Most of us have believed that if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. But here's a man who at 55 years found he was just where he had left off at 30. We have seen the truth demonstrated again and again. Once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. Commencing to drink after a period of sobriety, we were in a short time as bad as ever. If we were planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation of any kind, nor any lurking notion that someday we will be immune to alcohol.
It's very, very important. There's a couple of really good sentences, statements in here. Most of us have believed that if we remain sober for a long stretch, we could thereafter drink normally. That, again, is the big lie. So one of the things that I've highlighted in this particular paragraph, and then I highlighted and then underlined, once an alcoholic, always an alcoholic. And it's pretty simply stated, but it's very, very true. It's the once a pickle, always a pickle approach. So you can't go back to being a cucumber once you're a pickle. You are an alcoholic no matter what. And then last but not least, what I think is really important here is if we are planning to stop drinking, there must be no reservation. And that's an important thing. It's really something very personal and very private that you have to come to terms with yourself. That someday you will be immune to alcohol is just not the case. It's just not going to happen. And no matter how hard you try, you're going to find that the alcoholism has got you, and you will quickly jump right back into where you were, and in most cases you will get worse. So a lot of important things being brought up here. Good statements, like I said, and very, very important lesson learned here. Rob?
Yeah, remember on page 30, it said, we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we're like other people or presently maybe has to be smashed. That's the first step in recovery. Unless we smash the idea that we can ever safely take a drink, we're going to pick up a drink. So we have to smash that idea. And Bill is going to hammer this home over and over again. Why does he keep saying it over and over again? Because we need to hear it more than once, because we don't always pick it up the first time. So Bill, all through the book, when he's got a point to be made, he says it more than one time, says it over and over again, says it a little bit differently, but it's the same idea. We need to smash the idea that we can never safely take a drink. Hey, Fred, we're on page 33, brother. Young people may be encouraged by this man's experience to think that they can stop, as he did, on their own willpower. We doubt if many of them can do it, because none will really want to stop, and hardly one of them, because of this peculiar mental twist already acquired, will find he can win out. Several of our crowd, men of 30 or less, have been drinking only a few years, but they found themselves as helpless as those who had been drinking 20 years.
Yeah, there's, I think that a lot of people look at young people going through a phase, if you will. I know being in college, you get your first taste of freedom. And with that, you also get your really first real taste of alcohol, potentially, just depending on where you are and what the circumstances are. I knew it was when I was 18, it was still legal drinking age was 18, so it wasn't hard for me to get alcohol at that point. It did change while I was before I was 21. And so for a short period of time there, it was a little bit more difficult, but nonetheless, I was getting it. But the point I'm trying to make is young people drink a lot. They feel invincible. They're immortal. They've got the rest of their life in front of them, and it just seems like that they can, do whatever they want and still be okay. The other part of this is that as a young person, it doesn't seem fair. I've heard that a couple of times. It's just not fair. Somebody stopped drinking when they were 55, as in this story here. I'm sorry, not stop, but if you have stopped drinking at a later date because you finally got the consequences have mounted up and they finally have just overwhelmed you, and you were able to find that higher power and that inner strength in order to be able to do it. A lot of people young think, well, why can't I drink until I'm X age and then stop? I think that one of the things that I do with young people is try to encourage them to look at the fact that they're going to be a lot healthier. The consequences aren't going to be near as dire as they would be if they would continue to drink, and that there is actually a very fulfilling and satisfying life in place for those that don't drink. And really, I think that from a societal standpoint, there is I think this is just me based on some observations, but I think that there's a growing number of people that have just chosen not to drink altogether, and I wonder if that number isn't growing. But young people, I tell you what, just really hard to capture and get them to really think about this idea of a sober life and one in recovery. Rob?
Yeah, well, when I was younger, I thought that I could control everything in life. That I would stop drinking when I wanted to stop drinking, and not until that time. Unfortunately, the peculiar mental twist, the obsession of the mind, had already kicked in by that time, and my mind kept telling me, my brain kept telling me, yeah, you're making too much of this. You can drink. You haven't had a drink for almost a day now. Almost a day now. You can have one, just one. That's why it's, Bill, up to this point in the book, has really stressed the fact that we have an allergy, the phenomenon of craving, that if we take any alcohol, whatever, into our body, we crave more. So the main problem lies not in my body, but in my mind. If I don't take that first drink, I'll be okay. So now he's going to start to hammer home the idea that, it's mental. Our brains keep telling us to take these drinks when we don't want to. And as he said right here, we doubt if many of them can do it because none would really want to stop. They think they can control and enjoy their drinking, and hardly one of them, because of the peculiar mental twist already acquired, the obsession of the mind. So that's what we have to deal with. To be gravely affected, we're at the bottom of page 33, everybody. To be gravely affected, one does not necessarily have to drink a long time nor take the quantities some of us have. This is particularly true of women. Potential female alcoholics often turn into the real thing and are gone beyond recall in a few years. Certain drinkers who would be greatly insulted if called alcoholics are astonished at their inability to stop. We who are familiar with the symptom see large numbers of potential alcoholics among young people everywhere, but try and get them to see it. Asterisk at the bottom. True, when this book was first published, but 2014 U.S.-Canada membership survey showed that about 12% of AAs were 30 and under.
Yeah, and I think that group has grown slightly as we've kind of gone through the years. Certainly, we do have quite a few young people even in this meeting as well. But the being afflicted with alcoholism, really, I think it's one of those. Remember, it has us before we actually acknowledge it, and then actually once we've acknowledged it, then admitted that we are powerless over alcohol, and then getting to the point from the powerlessness to the fact that they want to, you truly want to quit. Again, we just reinforce as a young person. And at an early age, you can be an alcoholic just right from the beginning. And I've heard a couple of people that feel like that even when they were just experimenting with alcohol, that they were already, exhibiting the signs of alcoholism and really an alcoholic from the very start. Quite. And again, try and tell a young person that they're an alcoholic when they're looking around at all of their peers and friends and stuff that are drinking heavily as well, and they'll, for the most part, just probably scoff at you, but just get them to try and stop. Again, there's this strong desire to continue to drink, and then at the same time, if you even try to stop, if you're not really truly ready, you're going to find it impossible. Rob?
Yep, we're at the top of page 34, everybody. As we look back, we feel we had gone on drinking many years beyond the point where we could quit on our own willpower. If anyone questions whether he has entered this dangerous area, let him try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. If he is a real alcoholic and very far advanced, there is scant or chance of success. In the early days of our drinking, we occasionally remained sober for a year or more, becoming serious drinkers again later. Though you may be able to stop for a considerable period, you may yet be a potential alcoholic. We think few to whom this book will appeal can stay dry anything like a year. Some will be drunk the day after making their resolutions, most of them within a few weeks.
True enough. And I knew that, well, there was a couple of periods in my life when I was able to stop drinking for several months, in part because it was not allowed, just as part of the activity I was involved in with the military. And but as soon as I got back to a place where I could drink, I was quickly right back into the middle of it. But this idea here, where we could quit on our own willpower, it's really kind of a white knuckle phase, is what I just really, that's what I drive the point home, is that, somebody that wants to quit for a few weeks, few months, maybe a year, are really just kind of just powering through it and not doing it truly with regard to their ability to stop. It really does have a grip on you. Rob?
It certainly does have a grip on us, and we're going to talk a little bit more about drinking moderately, etc. But trying to quit on our own willpower, how many times did we try thinking, no, I can do it? Bill tried on willpower, self-knowledge, and fear. None of these things worked for a short period of time, but not for any length of time. So remember that. For those who are unable to drink moderately, the question is how to stop altogether. We're assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. Whether such a person can quit upon a non-spiritual basis depends upon the extent to which he has already lost the power to choose whether he will drink or not. Many of us felt that we had plenty of character. There was a tremendous urge to cease forever, yet we found it impossible. This is the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, this utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish.
Yeah, and for a long time, there is it is very baffling, and that loss the power to choose and to stop drinking, being powerless over that first drink. We are, in fact, talking a lot about the malady. But if we talk about this in the beginning of the paragraph, we're assuming, of course, that the reader desires to stop. I mean, that's a big personal and very private thing that you have to do internally. I knew that I would, when I first started, quote, trying to stop drinking, I was really doing it for other people, and I was doing it to try to appease them long enough so that I could get back to drinking again when, quote, things had settled down. All along there, the underlying theme was I just didn't want to stop drinking. I enjoyed it. I wanted to do it. I felt like people were getting in my business, and they shouldn't, and I just wanted to be left alone and to drink. But I would try my best to try to appease them over a period of time. So for the longest time, I just didn't desire to stop drinking. And then when I finally did desire to stop drinking and knew that I needed to, only then was I really ready to start my path down the path of recovery. So, Rob?
Yeah, remember that nothing can be accomplished until the potential alcoholic, or who we might consider an alcoholic, says to themselves, they fully concede to their innermost selves. They learned. Okay, they learned what alcoholism is, allergy, and the mental obsession. You know, once they learn about these symptoms, they have to realize or acknowledge to themselves, concede, okay, concede to their innermost selves that they are alcoholic. And until that time, nothing can be accomplished. Why? Because they're going to think that they can do it on their own. Or I'm just going through a rough phase. Or, you know, it means nothing, you know. But if there's an inkling that they think they can control and enjoy their drinking, whether science comes up with it, hypnotism, whatever, they're going to continue to drink. Might not be today, it might not be tomorrow. I wanted to tell a quick story. I have an uncle, lived next door to me my whole life. Great man, treated me so well. Thought the world of this man, but he was an alcoholic. Okay, now somebody bet him that he could not quit drinking for a year. He took that bet and stayed bone dry for 1 year. When that 1 year was over, he went right back to drinking. Picked up right where he left off, if not more. You know, but he was able for 1 year to quit drinking. This is a man that drank, you know, and drank. You know, as I say, I thought the world of this man. You know, his son died of cirrhosis of the liver. And he died. Basically, what they started doing to him is they started watering down his drinks, which put him into delirium tremens. You know, he had seizures and died. Sad case. But, you know, it just goes to show we are able to quit for certain lengths of period. But when we pick up the drink again, we go right back to where we were, if not worse. Now, Bill, at his study the other day, really broke it down really well about, you know, how the alcohol turns into acetone, etc. And what happens is that our body chemistry slows down as we grow older. Therefore, the amount of alcohol that we take, what we used to take when we were younger, our metabolism would, you know, go through it quicker. Our metabolism, as we get older, slows down a little bit, so the alcohol remains in our system. It doesn't break down as quickly or as rapidly, you know? So, you know, they keep stressing in the book that we end up just as bad, if not worse. So please keep that in mind. And also it says here, it's the baffling feature of alcoholism as we know it, this utter inability to leave it alone, no matter how great the necessity or the wish. We don't want to do it, but we keep doing it. Why? Why do I keep picking up that drink when I don't want to? It's all in the mind. Our mind tells us it's going to be different this time. Don't worry about it. You're making too big a deal about it. You're not a real alcoholic. You know, you just been going through a bad patch. Yeah, that's what my mind keeps telling me. But I know from looking back at my past history that whenever I take any drink, the phenomenal craving kicks in. So therefore, I can't take that first drink. I have smashed the idea that I can take it that first drink safely. I can't. I know it. So anytime that thought, even when I see a commercial on TV or I walk by some bar and see somebody on a nice warm day having a cold beer, I go, you know what? Geez, I wish I could do that, but I can't. I know I can't do it. And as long as I stay in fit spiritual condition, I got my fingers together, God, me, fit spiritual condition, I'm okay, because I'm realizing my brain that I can't take that first drink because it's going to set the chain of events going. So therefore, I have recovered. Okay. I'm not cured, but today I have recovered. So right at the bottom of 34, everybody. How then shall we help our readers determine to their own satisfaction whether they are one of us? I love how they ask a question. It's not for me to answer, is it, Leo?
Nope.
The experiment of quitting for a period of time will be helpful, but we think we can render an even greater service to alcoholic sufferers and perhaps to the medical fraternity. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking, for obviously, this is the crux of the problem.
Yeah, we're talking about to qualify you as an alcoholic, and we're about to jump into that. Part of that's going to be with an example as well, this is just a precursor as to some information that we're going to find out that's going to answer that first question there. Rob?
Yep. So we shall describe some of the mental states that precede a relapse into drinking, for obviously, this is the crux, the most important issue, a puzzling or difficult problem. That's what crux is. What sort of thinking dominates an alcoholic who repeats time after time the desperate experiment of the first drink? Friends who have reasoned with him after a spree which has brought him to the point of divorce or bankruptcy are mystified when he walks directly into a saloon. Why does he? Of what is he thinking?
Well, it's that baffling feature. It's the insanity that we experience with taking, or the inability to stop that first drink. It is that, and I guess go back to page 23, where we can say the malady has a real hold. They are a baffled. Once this malady has a real hold, they are a baffled lot. There is the obsession that somehow, someday, they will beat the game, but they often suspect that they are down for the count. But this is to be able to stop. I'm sorry, that's the wrong obsession. I'm referring to the wrong one, but the other one is the obsession where you can drink like others in a normal way. That particular obsession is for the one to stop and stay stopped, but it just isn't possible because of this malady that has a real hold on us. I apologize for some confusion there.
Oh, no problem, Leo. Now we're going to go into one of the best stories that I enjoy from the book. I love these stories that Bill talked about, the case studies, if you want to call them, or stories, because they bring it to life. This is, we can talk medically, we can talk all we want, but when we start getting into stories about certain people, I love them because it brings this to life for me. Our first example is a friend we shall call Jim. This man has a charming wife and family. He inherited a lucrative automobile agency. He had a commendable World War record. He is a good salesman. Everybody likes him. He is an intelligent man, normal so far as we can see, except for a nervous disposition. He did no drinking until he was 35. In a few years, he became so violent when intoxicated that he had to be committed. On leaving the asylum, he came into contact with us.
Sure, and so we're talking about Mr. Ralph Furlong as the actual name of the person that we're referring to here, and we're just setting up this, setting the stage for what is normal in most cases. And I guess to kind of back up here, most of us have been very successful in other parts of our lives where we've been able to make decisions that were good for us and for others. And again, most of us are liked, and we have a good job, a good life, a good family, and are respectable, good backgrounds and history. But then alcohol enters into the case, and as alcoholics, we quickly undo all of that and put ourselves into the path of destruction. And that's what we're going to see here as we go forward. Rob?
Yep. He's an intelligent man. Everybody likes him. Can everybody relate to that? I think so. I think we can all relate to that. You know, he didn't do any drinking till he was 35. You know, but he became so violent. His whole personality changed. Does it remind you of anybody? We're going to find out later on about the Jekyll and Hyde. And this sounds like our buddy Jim. We told him what we knew of alcoholism and the answers we had found. He made a beginning. His family was reassembled, and he began to work as a salesman for a business he had lost through drinking. All went well for a time, but he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. To his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. On each of these occasions, we worked with him, reviewing carefully what had happened. He agreed he was a real alcoholic and in a serious condition. He knew he faced another trip to the asylum if he kept on. Moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had a deep affection.
Now, the beginning of this paragraph is what I've characterized as the 1, 2, 3 drink. We'll call it the AA waltz. It is the nose of the alcoholism, and the answer we had found, made a beginning, and then turned around, and after things had gotten better again, jumped right back into drinking, and that pattern and that would repeat itself over and over. So again, I call that the AA waltz with the 1, 2, 3 drink. The other idea here is that even though he agreed he was a real alcoholic and in serious condition, which is basically doing his step 1 to some extent there, truly being powerless over it. He failed to enlarge his spiritual life, and to his consternation, he found himself drunk half a dozen times in rapid succession. Again, it's one thing to admit that you are alcoholic and that you are powerless over alcohol. It's another thing to take it to those next steps that you that you need to do in order to have that spiritual experience and find that higher power in order to have the strength necessary in order to stop drinking. Rob?
Yeah, he failed to enlarge his spiritual life. Well, where did we learn about enlarging our spiritual life? It was on page 14 and page 15 on Bill's story. It was, how do we enlarge it? Through work and self-sacrifice. You know, that's how we enlarge it. Now, why did he not do that? A lot of us, what happens is that we come into the fellowship of AA, things get a little bit better. We stop drinking, maybe. Hopefully we do. And, you know, we start getting money in our pocket again. People start trusting us a little bit more. You know, our relationship's better. Our job is a little bit better. Things look really good. So we think, well, I guess I don't need the rest of the steps. You know, we've done the 1, 2, 3 cha-cha-cha, as they say, and we just don't go any further. We don't do any of the action steps. We don't do our step 4. We don't get rid of any of the resentments. We don't do any amends. We don't continue on with the program because we think everything is fine. Then what happens? Step 1, 2, and 3 will keep us sober for a short period of time, but it wears off. Okay, we go back to drinking, then all hell breaks loose again. So we have to enlarge our spiritual condition. One of the funniest things I find in this book is this last line I'm going to read once more. Moreover, he would lose his family for whom he had a deep affection. He doesn't love his family He has an affection for them. I get a kick out of that. I don't know why, but to me that sticks out. You know, when I think about my family, I love my family. I don't say I have a deep affection for them. I love my family. I get a kick out of that, just the way Bill words that. We're at the top of page 36, everybody. Yet he got drunk again. Surprise, surprise. We asked him to tell us exactly how it happened. This is his story. I came to work on Tuesday morning. I remember I felt irritated that I had to be a salesman for a concern I once owned. I had a few words with the boss, but nothing serious. Then I decided to drive into the country and see one of my prospects for a car. On the way, I felt hungry, so I stopped at a roadside place where they have a bar. I had no intention of drinking. I just thought I would get a sandwich. I also had the notion that I might find a customer for a car at this place, which was familiar, for I'd been going to it for years. I'd eaten there many times during the months I was sober. I sat down at a table and ordered a sandwich and a glass of milk. Still, no thought of drinking. I ordered another sandwich, and decided to have another glass of milk. Suddenly, the thought crossed my mind that if I were to put an ounce of whiskey in my milk, it couldn't hurt me on a full stomach. I ordered a whiskey and poured it into the milk. I vaguely sensed I was not being any too smart, but I felt reassured as I was taking the whiskey on a full stomach. The experiment went so well that I ordered another whiskey and poured it into more milk. That didn't seem to bother me, so I tried another.
Nope. Sorry, I was
Deep in thought.
I was into the story there. I apologize. So this is, I mean, we can all relate to this particular position. Now, first and foremost, they do kind of allude to the fact that he's lost the business and is now just a salesman because of it. And we are making the assumption that he lost it because of his drinking, and it had caused him to have to sell the business to someone else and then actually stay on just as a salesman. So he's already lost the business, but he's at least still able to work and somewhat make a living as far as that is concerned. And he's going out to do some work. It's time and again, you go out, you have no intention whatsoever to drink, and then you find yourself at that point that, you know, in his case, he thinks that with a full stomach, glass of milk, he can put whiskey in his milk, and I can only imagine how that tastes nonetheless. But suddenly, you know, the insanity has him, this malady and the inability to stay away from that first drink. He just suddenly decided, he reasoned, he justified, and there he goes. He takes a glass of milk with whiskey, and then he decided that it was okay, everything was all right, nothing was happening. So he ordered again and again, and then there he is. He's off to the races. He's now had the allergy kick in. He's a different person now because of the alcohol on his brain. He's justified it. He's tracking, and all of a sudden now he is off to the races and drinking. In this case, I think it's four drinks so far in just one paragraph. So, Rob?
Yeah. No, I've been to quite a few book studies where people have put their own spin on this. He came into work on Tuesday. Well, why didn't he come in on Monday? That's not the point. The point, he might have had Monday off. Okay, we can come up. You know, some people, as I say, put their own spin on it. Oh, he must have not shown up on Monday because he was, you know, miserable, or he was upset, and this and that. We take Bill at what he's putting down on paper. He's trying to make a point here. Okay, he comes into work, his words with the boss. He had no thought of drinking, none whatsoever. Suddenly, the thought crossed his mind, and this is what we're talking about, the mental obsession. Okay, the thought it just comes. Okay, a lot of people, when you go to meetings, they'll talk about HALT: hungry, angry, lonely, tired. Okay, and you got to stay away from these things. You got to stay away from triggers, people, places, and things. Okay, no, there was no thought of drinking on this man's part. He's gone to a bar that he has gone to many times before, and he's not picked up a drink. Okay, he thought he could find somebody to, to sell a car to. Okay, then suddenly mental obsession kicks in, and he thinks that putting an ounce of whiskey in his milk is a smart idea. Okay, and it's not going to hurt him on a full stomach. Here it is. The mental obsession playing games, telling him it's going to be okay. Now, I don't know about you, but when I think about whiskey and milk together, oh my God, that sounds disgusting. But for him, it was so good that he has another one. So, but as I say, I've been into studies before where they come in and they take Bill's story and they add their own little twist to it. Okay, take Bill. Bill's trying to make a point. Let's take Bill for exactly what he's saying, black and white on these pages. Okay, so thus started one more journey to the asylum for Jim. Here was the threat of commitment, the loss of family and position, to say nothing of that intense mental and physical suffering which drinking always caused him. He had much knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, yet all reasons for not drinking were easily pushed aside in favor of the foolish idea that he could take whiskey if only he mixed it with milk. Whatever the precise definition of the word may be, we call this plain insanity. How can such a lack of proportion of the ability to think straight be called anything else?
Yeah, it is insanity. It's that malady of the mind and the allergy of the body, and it all kicks in. And even though he's got knowledge about himself as an alcoholic, knowledge does not fix me. I had to admit to that, and it is the malady of the mind where you easily pushed it aside in favor of the foolish idea that you could take whiskey if only you mixed it with milk and on a full stomach. Again, there was that rationalization that you could drink and be fine if these certain parameters were met. But then, as you see, he goes from one whiskey to the second, to the third, to the fourth, and so on, and then finds himself for another trip to the asylum and detox. So it is definitely insane, definitely. Rob?
And it's taken Bill a long time to tell us that we're crazy. Basically, we are crazy. And when it comes to drinking, and we can sugarcoat it, and but 37 pages in, and now he's telling us that when it comes to alcohol, we are insane. Okay, you may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched. This kind of thinking has been characteristic of every single one of us. We have sometimes reflected more than Jim upon the consequences, but there was always a curious mental phenomenon that parallel with our sound reasoning, there inevitably ran some insanely trivial excuse for taking the first drink. Our sound reasoning failed to hold us in check. The insane idea won out. Next day, we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity how it could have happened.
Yeah, it's a frustrating place to be. It is maddening that rationalization of why it's okay to drink. I've got this under control. I know I have a problem, but this time I'm gonna be ahead of it, and then find yourself off to the races again. It's just a really good way of stating it, and the consequences. We talk about the consequences. We really, I guess, as a reference here, we don't have a drinking problem. We have a consequence problem, and when those mount up, it is us thinking to ourselves, how the heck did this happen? How did I get here? And what am I going to do about it? Rob?
Exactly. Some people think that, the stories that Bill is going to tell are exaggerated. exaggerated. And you know what? Bill was a salesman. You know, he sold stocks to, slow thinking people. You know, has he embellished? Probably. Okay. But the idea is he's trying to get a point across. So let's take him at what he's saying here, because the point is so, you may think this is an extreme case. To us, it is not far-fetched. That's what the first 100 people, or the people that were in the fellowship at that time, that's what they found. It's the curious mental phenomena that parallel. Art always does this so well. Art B, he has his book study tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern time. If you want that information, I'll put it in the chat for you. But the thing is that Art always puts his hands together, and he talks about our parallel thinking. So everything's parallel, and then all of a sudden our thinking goes a little sideways. Art does it a lot better than I do it. I must admit that. Love Art. But the whole idea is that all of a sudden everything's going fine, and then all of a sudden we just veer off, and it's our mind telling us, "Hey, it's going to be okay. Take that drink," But the curious mental phenomena, because we don't understand it. Why is it all of a sudden I think it's going to be okay for me to take a drink? I take that drink, the cycle gets started in motion. The next day we would ask ourselves in all earnestness and sincerity, how it could have happened. I don't understand it. In other stories in the book, he's banging his hand on the bar saying, how did this happen? In some circumstances, we are gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like. But even in this type of beginning, we are obliged to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened. We now see that when we began to drink deliberately instead of casually, there was little serious or effective thought during the period of premeditation of what the terrific consequences might be.
Sure. And I would add to this that, in some circumstances, we've gone out deliberately to get drunk, feeling ourselves justified by nervousness, anger, worry, depression, jealousy, or the like, but also for celebrations and something that's really supposedly good that's happened that deserves a drink or more. And this to admit that our justification for a spree was insanely insufficient in the light of what always happened, it's always there. It's inevitable. As an alcoholic, there is no getting around this. There's no getting through it. You're going to have consequences, and that's one of those things that you have to realize, you have to be honest about, and you have to admit to yourself that going out and drinking, whether it be casually or deliberately, for an alcoholic, I feel like that line between the two is very thin, and you find yourself quickly in a bad place, and the consequences mount up. I know for a fact with me, even internally myself, my own consequences, the feeling of regret, that remorse, that guilt that I would start to feel when I started drinking, because I knew that I was going to do something that wasn't going to be appropriate with the others around me. Rob?
Beautiful, Leo. Let's go to page 23 for a quick moment, everybody. Because I want to, they gave us some excuses here of why they pick up the first drink. Okay, it's in about 2, 4, 6, 8, about the 10th line down. Sometimes these excuses have a certain plausibility, but none of them really make sense in the light of the havoc an alcoholic's drinking bout creates. They sound like the philosophy of a man who, having a headache, beats himself on the head with a hammer so that he can't feel the ache. If you draw this fallacious reasoning to the attention of an alcoholic, he will laugh it off or become irritated and refuse to talk. I can come up with a whole bunch of excuses of why I do something, but none of them make sense because of the craziness that I go through. Okay? In some circumstances, I'm sorry, I got to go down. Our behavior, we're near the bottom of page 37 now, everybody. Our behavior is as absurd and incomprehensible with respect to the first drink as that of an individual with a passion, say, for jaywalking. He gets a thrill out of skipping in front of fast-moving vehicles. He enjoys himself for a few years in spite of friendly warning. Up to this point, you would label him a foolish chap having queer ideas of fun. Luck then deserts him, and he is slightly injured several times in succession. You would expect him, if he were normal, to cut it out. Presently, he is hit again, and this time has a fractured skull. Within a week after leaving the hospital, a fast-moving trolley car breaks his arm. He tells you he has decided to stop jaywalking for good, but in a few weeks, he breaks both legs.
Yeah, so this is just an analogous story that we are using here with regard to the progression of somebody that's doing something foolish that even us as alcoholics would look at and go, why is this guy doing this? It's that same thought process that normal drinkers have when we look at our own drinking. And this is just a great story to kind of highlight the idea that, why does this person do this? We're confused by it. Somehow this person is just should stop because he's being injured. The same thing holds true with our drinking. Rob?
Yeah, there is an article that Bill gave a talk, and I don't know the exact date of the talk, but I have the link. I'll put it in. And what Bill does is he changes the jaywalker to stealing. And it's fascinating, the similarities. We're going to put in alcoholism for jaywalking too. But when Bill talks about this, it's quite an interesting, it's not a long article. I'm going to put the link up in a few minutes after I finish reading the end of the jaywalker. But if you get a chance, take a look at this article and just the similarities and everything. I found it quite interesting. I hope you do too. On through the years, his conduct continues, accompanied by his continual promises to be careful or to keep off the streets altogether. Finally, he can no longer work. His wife gets a divorce and he is held up to ridicule. He tries every known means to get the jaywalking idea out of his head. He shuts himself up in an asylum, hoping to mend his ways. But the day he comes out, he races in front of a fire engine, which breaks his back. Such a man would be crazy, wouldn't he? You may think our illustration is too ridiculous, but is it? We who have been through the ringer have to admit if we substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. However intelligent we may have been in other respects, where alcohol is involved, we have been strangely insane. It's strong language, but isn't it true?
Absolutely. And I would just say that's just, there's no better way to say it. And this illustration is, you may think it's too ridiculous, but is it? If we had been through the ringer and have to admit that we had substituted alcoholism for jaywalking, the illustration would fit us exactly. Bottom line is that this is just that slow progression of doing something that is bad for us. It's bad for others. You continue to do it even though it's injurious, and then you find yourself losing things around you. In this case, his wife gets a divorce because she can no longer stand the fact that he's continuing to get injured for doing something foolish. Well, the same thing holds true for alcoholism. We start to lose control of things. Things start to leave us, our friends, family, job, etc., start to fall apart, and there we are. So just a great illustration and story to kind of punctuate that craziness that we call alcoholism. All right, Rob, let's go ahead and bring Bill in.
Yes, sir.
Hi, this is Bill, alcoholic from New Jersey. Thanks a lot, guys. Good job today. This chapter, Bill is trying to show us part of the problem. He's trying to show us the insanity of alcoholism, the mental part. When we started on towards the beginning of today's session, we were on page 34, and it talks about let them try leaving liquor alone for 1 year. That's a test that you can do for yourself. And that's to show you the mental part. That's to show you what happens upstairs. We try to leave it alone we're not drinking. We try to stop for a year and see what happens. And most of us can't make a year. Most of us aren't even going to make a couple of days. This is to show us the mental part. In the beginning of this chapter, they showed us, they told us to try some controlled drinking. That's to show you the physical part. These are these two parts of alcoholism. The physical part is the allergy. If you take a drink, you can't stop. And the mental part is when you try to leave it alone, you can't stay stopped. So that's what Bill's trying to show us here in this here chapter. He's trying to show us the mental part, how our brain short circuits at times. And then he talks in here about if you can stop on a non-spiritual basis, it depends upon the extent that you've already lost the power to choose. So it depends. If you're a real alcoholic, you're over that line. You've passed that point. You don't have the power to choose whether or not you're going to drink any longer. In other words, we're powerless over the first drink because something in our brain makes us drink when we don't want to drink. The way I explain it, I say my brain wants its candy, and that's that. And your brain is smart enough to know how to make you drink when you don't want to drink or you have a good reason not to drink. And that's what he's trying to show us in here. And he uses this story here of this jaywalker he used Jim first. He used the story of Jim trying to show you here's a guy that doesn't want to drink. He's going to do everything he can not to drink. He wants to stay sober. He went through the first 3 steps with the people from AA. And what happened? Something in his brain short-circuited. Suddenly, right out of the clear blue sky, this guy was out to lunch someplace. He had no intention of drinking. And out of the clear blue sky, he gets this crazy, insane idea in his head. If I mix whiskey with milk, it's not going to hurt me on a full stomach. Bill's trying to show us here what happens, what goes wrong in our brain and what happens. We drink against our will. We've got no intention of drinking. We're not going to drink no matter what. Blah, blah, blah. I choose not to drink. And out of the clear blue sky, boom, we pick up a drink. You don't have to, a slip doesn't have to start 2 or 3 weeks before it happens. It can come suddenly. It can start happening 2 or 3 weeks before you pick up a drink, but it could also come suddenly right out of the clear blue sky. The point he's trying to get across to us here, there is a mental part to alcoholism. And most people don't know that. Oh, no, I'm fine. I'll use my willpower. Willpower doesn't work. If you think you can use your willpower, go cut up a bunch of onions and use your willpower not to have your eyes water. You just can't use your willpower when something's going on inside of your body. And something inside of our body or inside of our mind, our willpower doesn't make it go away. And these are the points Bill's trying to get across to us here. And he used the story of the jaywalker like an analogy to show us how crazy somebody can get. And we would look at that and say, wow, look at that crazy person. But if you switch jaywalking to alcoholism, we say, oh my God, that's me. It fits me exactly. Every time I drink, something goes wrong. I get hurt, whether emotionally or financially or physically, and I keep doing it over and over and over again. And this time it'll be different. This time I'm going to stop. I'm not going to do it anymore. And boom, we keep doing it. That's the whole point of this chapter. He's trying to show us that mental component to alcoholism. Remember, it told us in the previous chapters that the main problem centers in the mind. That's where our main problem is. If we drank and got drunk and got sick and got in all kinds of trouble, and then when we woke up the next day, we said we're never going to drink again, and we didn't have a mental part, we would never drink again. That's what social drinkers do. They get sick once, and then they never drink again. We have this mental part. No matter what happens to us, something in our brain kicks in and wants us to drink, and it makes us drink against our will. And that's the point Bill's trying to get across to us here. So this is a really, really good chapter, and it's really good to go over this a couple of times until this stuff sinks in, because sometimes it takes a while for it to sink in. That's why Bill keeps driving home the same point over and over and over again, because he knows alcoholics don't listen to things the first time. All right, that's all I got. Thanks a lot for letting me share.
Thanks, Bill.
Yep. Thank you very much. All right, we'll close with the serenity prayer.
God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference.